I'm greatly honored to introduce from AAA Northern Cal, Nevada, Utah, also known as Mountain West Group, Miss Lisa Riviere, Senior Director of Operations and Product, and from CAA, the Director of Club Operations, Tanya Weigelt. Ladies.
Good afternoon. Good to see everybody. My name is Lisa Riviere. I'm the Senior Director of Operations for Mountain West Group. I oversee all of our call centers, so for road service, for those of you that are familiar with us, as well as our sales channels and all of our branches outside of California. So happy to be here.
And my name's Tanya Weigelt, and I'm Director of Club Operations, and I pretty much do the same thing that you do, but in Canada.
Yep.
So we have locations in South Central Ontario, as well as in Manitoba, and all of our people, I'm sure as all of your people, are work at home.
Yep, yeah. Correct. I think I failed on my job.
Why?
There's my slide.
There you go. Okay.
All right, so I'm here to talk to you today about the use case that we implemented. I'm not gonna sit, I gotta move too much, I'm too antsy. The use case that we implemented at AAA Mountain West Group. So one of the things that we were looking at was introducing some automation. We had just replaced our current IVR and gone with a different vendor, and so we knew that wasn't something that we would be able to do. So kind of looked around and thought, what could we really automate that is taking a large toll on our call center, and when volumes go up, we're not able to actually handle the volume, and then our members aren't getting the calls that we need. So we looked at KMI, which is what we call keeping members informed. So you call us, you request road service, and then we call you and tell you what's happening. So we automated KMI, and really, again, this is about capacity and demand. When our volumes went up, our dispatchers got really, really busy, and they weren't able to make all the calls because they were too busy calling the providers to get the trucks to you. So it was a problem for us. So what we focused on was trying to automate that piece of the call, making the outbound call to the member. And then also by doing that, it decreased the amount of calls coming back into the center, because we know that vicious loop, right? People calling back in, what's the status? So our main focus was to decrease the amount of calls that were coming back into the center, automate those outbound calls, and make sure that we improve the overall member experience. It took us about 8 weeks to implement. 4 of those weeks, Replicant was done. It was us trying to build all the triggers and the logic, right, Tiffany? A very painstaking process to make sure that we got that right and we were making the calls at the right time. So I talked a little bit about the 8 weeks. We're now a little over 1.3 million outbound calls that we have made, which is fantastic. Super excited. We've been with Replicant for a little over a year now. And we have about 80% of our members that actually pick up the phone. We're actually making a phone call. We allow them to ask us questions like, can you confirm my pickup location? Can you confirm where you're dropping me off? Things like that. So it's great. If the member doesn't answer, we send them an SMS with the exact information. I get questions, why did I pick outbound calls? If you know AAA, that's why. So we started with that. Our escalations, so not intentional escalations, but escalations where someone's really not happy with what's going on in either the thinking machine, or they're just frustrated with what's going on with their situation, with their tow. It's less than 0.01% of escalations. So that's really, really low. So our members overall are just, that was kind of funny, overall satisfied. For those of you at AAA, that's a bad joke. Okay, are very satisfied with the thinking machine and the conversation that we're having with them. So it's just been a really, really great opportunity for us. I'll go into more details about the KMI SAT and the OSAT, which are the two on the right, in our next slide, so that we can give you some more details and walk you through that. But yeah, it's been a really good experience.
Thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Mercedes, am I good? Okay, I'm good. So if we can go to the next slide. At CCG, we had a little bit of a different situation where we weren't introducing new automation. We already had automation. And our partner at the time was not really performing at the level that we needed them to. We saw the results actually going down. So we were actively looking for another partner to work with to get better results out of the automation. So So you'll see I have quite a few use cases. We started with credit card updates first. And the reason we did that was it was the least risky of all of our automation events. So this is where customers can call in. They call into the IVR. There's an option that says, if you want to update your credit card information, they say yes. And it gets handled but from the start to the finish by Replicant. Whether they're on their cell phone or on their home phone, it just depends on what kind of phone they're using. They either get a form or they key in their credit card number immediately. And then everything is redacted, so we can't even see it. We can't see their CVV, and we can't see their credit card. So we're currently at about 50% completion rate on that app alone. We'll see some results a little bit further. Because of the results that we got from that, we then quickly moved to the road service. We wanted to get that in place before our winter season. Because if anybody knows what Canada's like in the winter, it's cold. So we wanted to have that additional call center team available for us. So we went for light service, where for members in a safe location, and that means gas, battery service, and lockouts. So we started that in November of 2021, and we very quickly went after that to cancel the ERS, and both of them are performing between 45 and 50%. When we have a really, really, really cold day, like -50 Celsius in Manitoba, it can rise to about 60% because customers know they're a little bit more patient when it's cold, so they'll take through the steps. We had such great success that we wanted to try something that we had tried with our previous automation partner. It didn't quite work. We wanted to try the tow at home. It's a little bit more complex in that we have to get a tow destination. At home, we already know where they are. They're at their home address. We already have that, so we don't have to geolocate it. But when we're now taking that car to another location, we have to find out where they're going. It's the dealership. It's the Toyota dealership. It's the auto shop on Kenilworth. So that's a little bit more risky, and it takes a little bit more complexity. So we started that in May of this year, and we'll see in future slides how we saw a little dip in our results, but I'm proud to say we're at 45% completion rate on that call type 2. Yeah, to all my AAA and CEA friends, yay. Then we went to ETA callbacks, which is the bane of my existence. I hate that call. People call us to say, where's my truck? Yeah, Joe hates it too, I see him. So we tell them when it's coming, and that completes at around 48%. And that takes a lot of non-valuable calls out of my call center. And the last one that we just started in August was membership renewals. So we already do the membership renewals and the credit card updates. This is directly from the IVR. They go in and they renew their memberships that way. A little bit of a different demographic with the customer there. I want a lot of a different demographic with the customer. Because if you can think about how do you usually pay your bills? You usually go online, you pay it through your banking. And so the people who call us to give us their credit card number to pay their bills are usually a little older. So they need a little bit more cajoling to play with the bot. So currently we're at 25 completion rate, but we're still in hypercare. I think we're getting out of it this week, and then we're going to start implementing some changes. There's a big thing where customers press renewals and they're not even renewing. So I don't even know why they're there, but we'll figure that out. So let's look at some results. So these are our results from the credit card updates. We started around 30%. You see an upward trajectory. We complete around 3,000 calls a month using this app. That's around 3 people. So it's not that it's not a lot of people, but it's not a lot of calls that come through. Let's move to the next one. This is our ERS at home. And we're currently completing around 25,000 calls, which is about 20% of our call volume every month. That equals around 25 people. That's a lot of people. So when we talk about change management a little bit further, we have to consider this as part of your call center. This is part of, it's almost like your own team of Replicant. They take calls, you got to look at it. And so that's 25 people taking calls for me. And you see in May the dip when we went to tows, but you see it coming right back up. So really great results. I'm going to pass it back over to Lisa to talk about what I think you're all interested about, which is what's the customer saying. So Lisa, over to you.
Thank you. All right, so I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but this is our satisfaction. So when we talk about AAA, we look at overall satisfaction. And in the overall SAT category, there's also a category specifically for KMI SAT. So if you look at this, the blue is replicant and the orange is non-replicant. So any other type of automation, some of our providers use a text service or an SMS service, and then some of it's our dispatchers actually calling. And you can see we're having the most impact on calls between 60 and 120 minutes. I actually just texted Tiffany before we took off yesterday and said, look, we're breaking the barrier on the bottom line and we're coming across. So it's really exciting for us. So you can see obviously 5-point difference between replicant and non-replicant on our actual KMI SAT, and then an increase of an overall 2 points in satisfaction for our overall satisfaction, an increase in 2 points, which is huge for any of you trying to move NPS or OSAT or any of those types of things, right? Like if you saw kind of in the beginning, that was my charter for the project, and I thought, I hope I impact member satisfaction, but for those of us, it's very hard to quantify what we think that impact is going to look like. So as long as I stayed the same, I was going to be happy, but to see this impact has been huge. So it's been really exciting. And what I should say too is we're still kind of in our beta phase. We've got so much automation going on right now. Kevin knows this hasn't changed really from what we originally intended. So the fact that our beta is doing so well, we can only go up from here. So I'm really excited once we can get back in here and tweak some things and try some more stuff. So back to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to show you some of the comments, because when we look at NPS, when we look at the survey results, replicant really performs at the same rate as a live agent. There really isn't any difference. When a customer completes in replicant, that gets tagged as a replicant call. If it doesn't complete, it goes out to a live answer, and then it gets tagged to a live answer call. But what we never saw with our previous automation partner were, can you keep on going so that we can see it? Yeah. Yep. Were the compliments we got. We never saw compliments. Customers are actually saying, I liked working with your bot. Have you ever seen that? We had never seen it. I fell off my chair. Anita had to come and get me. Are you okay? I'm like, look, they're saying nice things about the bot. On the second page, which is really the most important, is that it understands the accents. I'm really excited about the languages, and I want to know more about that. But look at the one that says, I was able to understand me, or the attendant was able to understand me 100% of the time, which he wasn't, or she wasn't used to being able to, or having that experience. And that's so important when you have a diverse population and you need to be able to understand all kinds of accents. That is like job number one. So my favorite, it was actually a detractor, but my favorite, and I call it a compliment, was that it said, your bot freaks me out a little bit. Creeps me out. And that really goes to how much replicant is almost human. And they understand that it's a bot, which I'm glad they understand it, but I like that comment the best. We're going to talk about change management now, right?
Yes.
Okay. Over to you.
All right. So change management. I think we've all been on projects before, right? And we all think they're going to do really, really well, and then they kind of fail once they get out to our teams, right? What is this thing? What are you making me do? Is it taking my job? I love the fact that whenever we talk to replicant, it's not about replacing our team members' jobs. It's allowing them to use their analytical skills and the things that they've learned so that we can use them to the best of their abilities, and then we can automate kind of those mundane tasks. So one of the things that we first did, our vice president of dispatch, this is the area in which we were automating, he was really good about going into our Slack channel and saying, hey, I want to introduce you all to a new team member. And Tanya will talk a little bit about this as well. And the team member's name is Replicant, right? And getting them excited, like, what is replicant? What is this? So I think the biggest thing is making sure that, whatever this automation is, it's part of us, right? It's not this separate entity. It works in conjunction. It's part of the flow, all those types of things. And then really transparency. How does it impact them? If we don't have the narrative, or if we don't have the discussion, they leave it up to their own minds and their own conclusions. And I think we've all been there and we know what that is going to be. So we really talked to them about, this is not about replacing you. This is not about taking your work away per se, right? It's about automating that task that you hate to do anyway, right? They all hate KMI. I don't want to call the member, they're gonna be mad, they're gonna be yelling at me. So it's about automating that piece, and then you can focus on the things that you know are the most important, which is calling the drivers, calling the shops, getting the truck to the member faster. And so once we put all of that in context for them, it was like, okay, this is kind of cool, right? So I kind of went into my next one, which was the transparency. The other thing is also feedback, right? If we don't ask them for feedback, if we don't make them part of that process, again, it's not gonna work, it's not calling, it's not happening, how can this, right? So we had a Google form. Send me your feedback. Oh, Peter, you think there's a bug. Oh, Kevin, you think we should do something different. Fantastic. And we folded them into the process. So now there's buy-in from that level as well. We added notes to the system so that they could see, yes, the thinking machine actually made the call. Here's what the call said. This is what time it was, and they could go validate it. Because we know they're all gonna go check up to make sure the automation's doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? And then close the loop. The last thing that I can say is follow up with people. Always close the loop. Whether it's, hey, Kevin, that suggestion was great, but we're not gonna implement it right now. Or Peter, yes, there was a bug and here's what we did. But closing that loop. Otherwise, again, they're leaving things to the imagination and they're not listening to us. We're not part of the process. They can't possibly understand. I've been a dispatcher for 15 years, right? So just making sure that they're part of the process. So if you take anything away, it's about transparency and then making sure that you close the loop and make sure that your people are a part of the process. All right, your turn.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome.
So from a change management, we looked at our change management 2 ways. The first way was the operational team, and it was Steve, this guy over here, who said, you know, we gotta do things a little bit differently. Like I said before, we had another partner and we constantly said, what about this? What about that? What about this? And we just barraged them with all these questions where we had to step back with this and say, okay, one at a time, let's implement a change and then step back and measure it. Implement a change, step back and measure it, and make sure that we are doing this in a methodical manner. So that's really the partnership with Replicant, is to really walk alongside them and not push and not, confuse, is basically to say, here's what we think can be better and here's the way we want to do it. And then it's really a partnership to say, well, how is the best way to do it? Because, when we were talking this morning about how you shouldn't say I'm sorry, we had no idea about that. That's your guys' stuff, right? We know road service. So you take those 2 expertise levels and put them together and you get harmony. The other thing is about knowing how to manage this as a team. Like I said, this is another team of agents, really, who are working for you. 25 agents on the ERS. So the management, the supervisors need to go in and listen to calls, look and see what kicks out. Is that the member experience we want to have for our members? And if it's not, then we need to document and provide this feedback to the Replicant team so they can help us fix it. So this is all a real big change for our own operational team. And like you guys said at the beginning, you're not perfect. Well, neither are we. We make mistakes and we ask for things that maybe shouldn't be. So really it's about listening both sides. Then the other side of the change management was really with the organizational team, because we had this partner that wasn't operating very well. And there's a lot of bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, like from the CMO to people who had service that didn't work, and they themselves say, oh, the people were great, but your tool is not good. And you're like, but that's my people. You're talking about my people now. So you sort of have that mother bear, you got to hug them and make sure they're okay. So it's about communication and education. So the other guy, Brian, he's already done some Replicant roadshows with the agents, with some other people, to make sure that they understand. Once I show them the dashboard, or once I show them a call, and they can see how the member is interacting with the bot, most of them say, oh my God, that member said what now? A lot of the things are member errors, not bot errors. So they get a different sense of what this bot can do, what it's capable of. We tell it, well, we programmed it to say that. Oh, okay, I get it. When you educate people that way, then they'll come along for the ride. And then they'll, instead of being an opponent of your automation, they'll be a proponent. Is that the right word, proponent? Yeah, okay. Anyway, so that's from a change management perspective. That's what, this is continuing. This doesn't end, because there's always going to be the new person and the new person who has ideas or preconceived ideas about what automation is. So that's all I got to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we were going to open it up and see if anybody had questions.
We got a timer down here, 25.
Yeah.
Are we good? Chelsea, how'd we do?
She's
Yes?
over there.
Okay, good.
She's good.
I think we talked too fast, didn't we?
Yeah, well,
a little
that's
bit.
us.
Okay.
So.
That's okay.
Any questions? Anybody have questions? All right.
Oh, no. Yes,
Peter.
That was great, by the way. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you talk a little bit more about the change management you went through with your agents? Because that's a big part of the story for, I think, a lot of folks here, is how the automation works with and complements the agents themselves. So if you could go a little bit deeper on that part of the story.
Yeah, Tanya talked a little bit about it as far as like introducing them to the technology, and then we did demos. So similar to their road shows, we showed them how we programmed the automation and how it was supposed to work, so that they understood why we were doing why the thinking machine was doing what it was doing, that it was intentional. And then I think we even showed them like some of the callers where, members would say, yes, no, right? And different things, and how the thinking machine would react in those situations and different turns. Tiff did a bunch of demo calls herself as well to show them kind of what the turns could look like, because we get a lot of very straightforward calls, which is what we wanted. We didn't want to have a super lengthy, but they can ask questions. So we did that as well. Do you want to expand at all?
Absolutely. With all the things that you've done, absolutely. We're about 7 years into our automation road trip, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think the proof is in the pudding. We always said that we're not here to replace people. We're here to give you more interesting and complex work to do.
Right.
And so proving that to people by seeing people get promoted to different jobs, shifting workforce from the call center into dispatch, like Gotti was saying, your level 1 calls, right? So those level 1 calls are not being handled in the call center anymore, so I don't need them in the call center, so I flip them over to the dispatch team. Now they're calling people, they're white glove service for priority calls. We have our control tower, they do more, and so they can see, okay, so she really didn't replace us with them, she just moved us to things that are more interesting. Now, we've got an SIU team, which is the coolest team ever. We've got teams that audit, we have quality teams, and so agents that used to do these first level calls are now doing much more interesting things and staying with us and really wanting a career with CAA, and they really care about us. They care about my mental health, that I don't have to do the same thing over and over again, calling, some restaurant saying that guy wants cheese balls. So I wouldn't want to do that job. So I try to put myself in the seat where they sat, because I used to be an agent, and I used to walk in and go, it's 10 o'clock only. Oh, I got to do this for another 4 hours. So if you can remember what that feels like and give them more interesting things to do and more exciting things to do, they'll stay with you. Yeah. The trust is there.
Yeah, we're doing a little bit more of that on our call receive, which is the intake side as well. Yeah. So we've moved some of the dispatch function over. So it's the same thing, right? We're pushing more to automation, and then we're trying to diversify, because our highest turnover rate is call receive.
Yeah.
Because that's the most redundant, right? Like that's the intake. That's what we talked about in the very beginning. Hi, I'm da-da-da, how can I help you? Where are you going? Where you need to blah, 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 right? It's so mundane. And there's these smart people, right? Like you can look in your Workday systems and see some of these people have master's degrees and bachelor's degrees, and they're just trying to get into the company so they have somewhere to start. And, they just continue to amaze you. And you're right, like, who wants to do that all day long? Like, we do it for a certain time, right? I think all of us started in call center. Some of us cried every day for like 6 months and said, I'm going to
Did you cry every day for 6 months?
I did. I hated it
gosh.
so much.
See, I loved it.
I hated it. It was very mundane for me. So it's the same thing. I put myself in the shoes. I was in insurance. Hi, Gotti, your deductible is $500. It's payable to the shop upon completion of repairs. You have rental coverage up to $20 a day, not to exceed 30 days, or $600, whichever comes first. Can you tell? That was like 20 years ago. So yes, I think it's imperative that we put ourselves in their shoes and remember that everybody's smart and everybody's bringing something to the table. So these things help us from like a KPI and a metrics perspective, but then it also helps us from an employee retention perspective because they want to stay longer with us and then they get exposure to different things and then they see a career beyond answering the phone for 6 months.
Nobody wants to do that for the rest. Well, there are some people who do it and do it
Yes.
happily, but the majority of people don't want to do that for the rest of their lives.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
I think I can speak loud enough.
Oh, I think she's going to give you a microphone if you want.
In that way, you're getting a more interesting, more complex position. What impact did that have on wages?
Oh, okay.
She was
Yeah.
asking what impact, if we're moving people to more interesting, more complex roles, what impacts that has on wages. Well, that for us at CCG, if you go to a more complex role, if you go from call center, there's a band, and then dispatch has a bigger band, they get paid more because it's more complex, more risk, more responsibility. When you go to the next level, which is control tower, they actually get a different grade, and they again get more pay and more bonus because again, more risk, more responsibility, more complexity to their role. And so depending on where they go, it is a higher wage because they're going to a more complex, more responsible job.
Yeah,
about
so
you?
we did have increases, but I will be honest with you, it wasn't primarily attributed to attrition, or excuse me, to automation. It was really more about attrition and the fact that anybody from the West, In-N-Out Burger pays $15 an hour, right? And Hobby Lobby, I think, is at 16 or 17 bucks an hour. So if you're gonna get berated in a call center all day long, it better be really good pay. Otherwise, I would work at In-N-Out because everybody seems like they're having a good time.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, even Chick-fil-A, right? Like, have a wonderful day,
Chick-fil-A
right?
is
Like,
awesome. I like the
yeah.
Chick-fil-A.
So we really did it as a strategic move of how do we retain our people and how do we remain competitive in the marketplace, understanding that our jobs are hard, right? And our members aren't so nice.
Especially lately.
Yeah.
And
Well, if you
everybody
think about
who
it,
works for me, they know I call it that there's a certain crustiness
yeah, crusty's
out there
a
in
good
the
word,
world
or
right
salty.
now. Salty?
Yeah.
Salty's good.
Yeah,
yes.
salty's good too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, really they're calling us in their time of need. So it's a very stressful situation. So their tolerance is really low. So really the compensation was centered around that, trying to keep our people and make sure that we're competitive. But then it will naturally kind of align because we're bringing them up kind of with those more junior analytical levels as far as pay is concerned when they have the variety in their role. Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Good question. What else? Yes.
We've talked a lot about the changes to the workforce and how to plan for that change management. How has Replicant impacted your lives as leaders? And what changes have you guys experienced? Are you able to focus your efforts and your time in other areas? Anything worth sharing there?
Well, I think I'll start.
Okay.
I think as a leader, I have to look at how it has changed the way I do business. And we're constantly talking, well, what's the right number? What's the right percentage of calls? Should you automate? Somebody asked me that from AAA the other day, and I went, I don't know what the right number is. I don't know, you'll know when you get too high because then your customer will kick back, right? So for the change in the leadership, it's about, okay, now how do I take this new workforce tool that I have and maximize it? So I have to think about, maybe I need to have different people on my team who just manage that. And we've spitballed a couple of ideas, whether we have a team of people that deals with automation, whether we have one person who sits there and looks at it all day. I don't know what the right answer is, but it's about, these changes that are happening in our society and in the way we do business. We have to stay ahead of it. There are no answers. Somebody asked me at the beginning of the pandemic, does the government help you make all these decisions? And I'm like, say, with what? Who? The government? What? What help me with how? There's no answers. So it really does force us to constantly have these conversations, whether it's with upper management, with our peers, with our colleagues, and say, how can we do this better with you guys in Replicant? And say, well, can you share with us what's Love's, the
Right.
Loves?
Loves.
Love that store. I just went to Florida. I'm like, we got to go to the Loves. I love that store. I could spend hours in there. You're welcome. You come up to CEA area, we'll rescue you.
I don't know
it's
if
just-
that's a fair trade, but okay.
You know? I love that store. Anyway, you really got to change the way we think, and we got to all band together and figure out this new world together, because there are no answers, and we have to try new things and, A/B test, as so to speak, and see what'll work and what the customers like and what the members like, and then we have to forge our new path
Right.
in this new world.
Yeah.
So,
I think
yeah.
for us, most of the clubs, we've all been dabbling in, I'll say, various vendors with automation. And so I've kind of been through that entire process through like 3 or 4 different vendors now. And I think the one thing that Replicant did for us is it really opened our executives' eyes up to what was possible, because we'd really been struggling with kind of how much we had containment, what our success rates look like. And once they started seeing what we were doing with Replicant, then it was like full bore, we're gonna go all in on automation, and they created an automation team. So we have a vice president of automation, he has a strategic team, he's got analysts, he's got all these things. So I think it really just opened up their eyes of what's possible. I think if you're just kind of used to, like 20%, 15%, it's like you don't see the ROI, right? And so there's just kind of like, why does Lisa keep bugging me about this, right? But once they see how successful that members are answering 80% of the calls that we're making to them, and then they see the SAT scores that are corresponding, they're like, yeah, we've got to go all in. And so that's what we're doing right now. So that's been the game changer for us. Yeah. Who else? Anyone?
I think they're done.
You're done?
Yeah, are they done?
I mean, we have 13 minutes, so unless you want to see Tanya and I dance, which we've kind of...
We did practice a routine.
We did, yeah. Are you ready?
Much to Peter's chagrin, he's like, please do.
If you hear a loud thud, it's Peter falling over. God, he's like, yes. That's always the juxtaposition between the CEO and the CMO, right? All right, anything else? All right, well, thank you for having us. Have a great day.